closed the door, quietly. I know it's past midnight, and I know you didn't expect a call this late, but what I'm about to tell you isn't the kind of story that keeps until morning. Pour yourself a drink if you want. I'm not touching the stuff tonight. Need to keep my head clear. Because what happened 3 nights ago, sitting right where you're sitting now, that defied every rule I thought I knew about reality. It was raining. It's always raining in these stories, but this time it actually was. The kind of rain that sounds like static on a dead radio. My office was dark except for the desk lamp and the neon sign across the street bleeding red through the window. I was finishing paperwork on a divorce case. Husband cheating with his secretary. Original as tuberculosis and twice as predictable. The door opened without a knock. That should have been my first warning. People who don't knock usually don't have good news. He stepped inside and I looked up from my files. Man, maybe 40, wearing a gray suit that had seen better days. His hat was dripping, his face was pale. Not sick pale, just pale. Like he'd been living underground and just remembered what moonlight looked like. He sat down across from me without being invited. Second warning. Mr. Orton, he said. His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of voice that's used to not being interrupted. I need your help. Someone is trying to kill me. I hear that a lot. Usually it's paranoia. Sometimes it's debt collectors. Occasionally it's true. I asked him his name. He hesitated. Michael Graves, he said. Convenient name for a man worried about dying. I asked him who wanted him dead. He said he didn't know. Helpful. I asked when the threats started. He said 3 days ago. I asked what form the threats took. He leaned forward, and that's when I noticed it. The streetlight was coming through the window behind him, cutting across my desk at an angle. Sharp light, the kind that throws shadows. My papers had shadows. My coffee cup had a shadow. Michael Graves didn't. I've been a detective for 15 years. I've seen men lie, cheat, steal, and murder. I've seen things that would make a priest reconsider his faith. But I'd never seen a man without a shadow. I looked at him carefully. He was solid, real, sitting in my chair wearing my patience thin. But the light passed through where his shadow should have been and hit the wall behind him like he was made of nothing but borrowed air. I didn't mention the shadow. Rule number 1, when something impossible happens, act like it's Tuesday. I asked Michael Graves what he did for a living. I'm an accountant, he said. Of course he was. I work for Westfield Industries. Have for 12 years. Quiet life. No enemies. No debts. No reason for anyone to want me dead. But someone does. I can feel it. Following me. Watching me. Waiting. Paranoia as a paying client until proven otherwise. I took notes. Asked for his address. He gave me one on Fell Street. I asked if he lived alone. He said yes. Wife died 2 years ago. No children, no close friends, just work and home, and the space between. A simple life. The kind that should have had a simple shadow. I still didn't mention it. Instead, I asked for $50. He paid in cash. The bills were real enough. I told him I'd look into it. Start with his workplace, check for disgruntled colleagues, financial irregularities, anything that might explain the threats. He stood to leave. Walked to the door. Opened it. The hallway light spilled in. He stepped through it. The light touched him, wrapped around him, went right through where his shadow should have been. Then he was gone. The door closed, and I sat there wondering if I'd just met a ghost or lost my mind. I waited 5 minutes, went to the window, watched him walk down the street below. The streetlights hit him from every angle. No shadow. Other people passed him on the sidewalk. Their shadows stretched and shrank under the lights. Normal, natural. Michael Graves walked through the city like a hole in reality. Nobody seemed to notice. Nobody except me. That worried me more than anything else. I tried to sleep. Couldn't. At 6 in the morning I gave up and made coffee. The sun came up gray and tired, same as always. I thought about shadows. How they're proof you exist. How they follow you everywhere. How losing one would be like losing evidence of your own life. By 7, I was dressed. By 8, I was standing outside Westfield Industries. By 9, I knew Michael Graves had never worked there. The receptionist was cheerful and unhelpful in equal measure. I asked for Michael Graves. She checked the employee directory, checked it again, apologized. No one by that name worked there. Never had. I described him. Gray suit, pale face, quiet voice. She shook her head, offered to connect me with human resources. I declined. Lying is one thing, not existing is another. I left wondering which category Michael Graves fell into. The address on Fell Street was a 3-story walk-up that had given up on dignity around 1939. Peeling paint, crooked shutters, the kind of place where hope goes to die quietly. I climbed to the 2nd floor, apartment 2B. The name on the door said M. Graves. At least that part was consistent. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. The door swung open. It hadn't been latched. Another warning I should have heeded. The apartment was empty. Not just empty of people, empty of everything. No furniture, no curtains, no signs. Anyone had lived there in years. Dust covered the floor in a thick carpet. My footprints were the only ones. I checked every room. Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. All bare, all abandoned. The windows were painted shut. The air tasted like forgotten decades. Michael Graves didn't live here. Maybe nobody did. I went back downstairs, found the building superintendent in a basement apartment that smelled like cabbage and poor decisions. He was 70, maybe 80, with eyes like a suspicious turtle. I asked about the tenant in 2B. He squinted at me. Empty for 6 years, he said. Owner keeps meaning to renovate. Never does. Why? I described Michael Graves. The superintendent shook his head. Never seen him. Nobody's lived there since Mrs. Chun moved out in 48. So Michael Graves didn't work where he said he worked. Didn't live where he said he lived. Didn't cast a shadow. And had paid me $50 in real money to investigate threats from people who probably didn't exist either. This was either an elaborate con or something worse. In my experience, worse usually wins. I needed to find him. Problem was I didn't know where to look for a man who left no trace. I started with the basics, city records. No, Michael Graves matching his description on file. No birth certificate, no driver's license, no tax returns, nothing. I tried death records next. Figured maybe he was using a dead man's name. Found 3 Michael Graves who died in the past decade. One was 8 years old, one was 73. One died in a car accident in 1951. That one was 42. Close enough to be interesting. The accident report was filed at the Hall of Justice. I pulled it. Michael Andrew Graves, accountant, worked for Westfield Industries, lived on Fell Street. Died when his car went off the bridge on a rainy October night. No witnesses, no explanation. The car was found in the bay 3 days later. The body was never recovered. The case was closed. Death by misadventure. Neat. Final. Except he was sitting in my office 2 nights ago asking for help. Dead men don't hire detectives. Usually. I sat in the records room, staring at the file, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. The photo clipped to the report showed Michael Graves. Same face, same quiet intensity. Taken while he was alive. When he still had a shadow, I made copies of everything. Went back to my office. The $50 was still in my desk drawer. I held it up to the light. Real currency. Dead man's money. I needed to talk to someone who knew Graves before he died. Or didn't die. Or whatever state he was currently occupying. The accident report listed next of kin, Sarah Graves' wife. But my client said his wife died 2 years ago. The dates didn't match, unless he was counting from when he died. Ghost math. I was getting a headache. I called information. No Sarah Graves listed. Big surprise. The Westfield Industries employee records were my next stop. I'd lied to enough secretaries to get what I needed. Graves had worked there from 1940 to 1951. 11 years. Reliable. Quiet. The kind of employee who shows up, does the work, and leaves no impression. Supervisor was listed as Harold Chun. That name sounded familiar. Chun. The superintendent mentioned a Mrs. Chun. Coincidence is just laziness wearing a disguise. I found Harold Chun at Westfield. He was 55, gray-haired, with the expression of a man who'd seen accounting trends come and go and found them all disappointing. When I mentioned Michael Graves, his face changed. Subtle. Like someone stepping on your grave while you're still using it. "Michael," he said slowly. "I haven't heard that name in years. Why are you asking?" I told him I was settling an old estate matter. Close enough to true. Chun leaned back in his chair. Michael was a good man, brilliant with numbers, terrible with people, kept to himself. Then his wife got sick. Cancer. It destroyed him. He became obsessed with finding a cure. Spent every penny he had on experimental treatments. None of them worked. She died in the spring of 1951. He drove his car off the bridge that October. I always wondered if it was an accident. I asked if Chun remembered anything unusual about Graves in the months before he died. Chun thought about it. He changed, he said, after Sarah died. Became distant, more than usual. Started talking about second chances, about how death wasn't final if you knew where to look. I thought it was grief. People say strange things when they're drowning in loss. Then he died, and I forgot about it. Until now. Why does this matter? I didn't answer his question, just thanked him and left. Death not being final. Second chances. A man without a shadow asking for help 3 years after drowning. The pieces were forming a picture I didn't like. I needed to find Sarah Graves. If she was dead, she'd have a death certificate. If she wasn't, she'd have answers. Either way, she was the key. Dead wives usually are. It's practical like that. Sarah Elaine Graves died April 15th, 1951, buried at Laurel Hill Cemetery. I drove out there in the afternoon. The cemetery was old, sprawling, full of marble angels and broken promises. The groundskeeper directed me to her plot. Simple headstone. Her name, her dates, and next to it another stone. Michael Andrew Graves. His dates matched the accident report. They were buried together, romantic, except one of them was walking around. I stood there looking at the graves, wondering if I should dig one up. Bad idea for multiple reasons, legal and otherwise. Instead, I looked around. The cemetery was quiet, empty, the kind of empty that feels occupied. Then I saw him, standing 50 yards away between two crypts, Michael Graves, watching me. Even from that distance, I could tell. No shadow, just a man-shaped absence in the afternoon light. I started walking toward him. He didn't move, didn't run, just stood there like he was waiting for something inevitable. I got within 20 feet. "Mr. Graves," I said. My voice sounded wrong in all that silence. He looked at me with eyes that had seen the other side and decided it wasn't worth the trip. "You found me," he said. "I knew you would. You're good at finding things. Even things that don't want to be found." I asked him the obvious question. "Are you dead?" He smiled. It wasn't pleasant. "That's a complicated question, Mr. Orton. Philosophically speaking, yes. Legally speaking, definitely. Practically speaking, I'm standing here talking to you. So maybe the better question is, what does dead really mean? I've been thinking about that for 3 years. Haven't reached a conclusion I like yet." I asked him why he hired me, what he wanted me to find. He looked at his grave, then back at me. "I want you to find out who killed me," he said. "The accident wasn't an accident. Someone ran me off that bridge. I remember the other car. The impact. The water. I remember dying. Then I remember waking up. Not in a hospital. Not in heaven. Just here. Walking around. No shadow. No reflection. No proof I exist except the memories nobody else has. A ghost hiring a detective to solve his own murder. That was a new one. I'd had clients lie about being dead before, usually to dodge alimony. But Michael Graves wasn't lying. His shadow was missing. His grave was real. And something in his eyes told me he wasn't crazy, just caught between states of being that didn't have names yet. I asked him what he remembered about the night he died. "It was raining," he said. "I was driving home from the office, late, around 11. A car came up behind me. Black sedan. No headlights. It kept getting closer. I sped up. So did they. Then we were on the bridge, and they hit me. Hard. Deliberate. My car went through the railing. I remember the fall. The impact. The water filling the car. The cold. Then nothing. Then everything. I was standing on the shore watching them pull my car out 3 days later. I asked if he'd saw the driver. He shook his head. Too dark. But I know it wasn't random. Someone wanted me dead. And they got their wish. Mostly, I came back wrong. Incomplete. I can walk, talk, think. But I can't touch anything without it feeling like I'm pushing through water. Can't eat, can't sleep. Can't cast a shadow or see my reflection. I'm here, but I'm not. It's a special kind of hell, Mr. Orton. I asked him why he waited 3 years to hire me. His expression darkened. I didn't wait. I tried everything. Went to the police. They couldn't see me. Tried to talk to my old colleagues. They walked right through me. For 3 years, I've been invisible. Then 2 nights ago, something changed. You saw me. First person in 3 years who could. I don't know why. Don't care. I just need answers before I fade completely. Fading, that explained the urgency. Whatever was keeping him tethered to this world was weakening. I asked him who might have wanted him dead. He thought about it. I was just an accountant. I processed numbers, filed reports. Nothing worth killing over. Unless... He stopped, looked at me. Unless I saw something I shouldn't have. The last month before I died, I was auditing the company books. Found some irregularities. Nothing major. Just strange payments. Strange payments are never just strange. They're usually illegal, immoral, or both. I asked what kind of payments. Cash transfers to a company called Meridian Holdings. Large amounts. Regular intervals. But the invoices didn't match any services rendered. I flagged it. Sent a report to my supervisor, Harold Chun. He told me to drop it. Said it was above my pay grade. I dropped it. Then a month later, I was dead. Probably unrelated. Meridian Holdings. The same company that owned the Ashford building, the one that erased the 13th floor. Coincidence was working overtime lately. I asked Graves if he kept copies of his findings. In my desk at work, he said. Bottom drawer. Locked. I had a key. But after I died, they cleaned out my desk. Everything went to my wife. Then she died and everything went too. He stopped, frowned. I don't remember. The details are getting fuzzy. Memory loss, another sign he was fading. I needed to move fast. I asked if anyone else knew about the irregularities. Just Chun, he said. And maybe whoever authorized the payments. Someone high up. I never found out who. Didn't seem important at the time. Funny how death clarifies priorities. Now it's the only thing that matters. Find out who killed me, Mr. Orton, before I disappear for good. You're my last chance. My only chance. I told him I'd do what I could. He nodded. Started to fade. Not metaphorically. Literally. His edges got blurry. Transparent. Like someone was turning down his opacity. It happens when I get tired, he said. Or emotional. Or when I remember too much about being alive. I'll find you again when I'm stronger. If I can. Then he was gone. Just empty air and the smell of rain that hadn't fallen yet. I stood in the cemetery alone. The sun was setting. Shadows stretched across the graves. Everyone's shadow except his. I walked back to my car thinking about invisible men and missing floors and companies that paid for services they didn't receive. The pieces were connecting. The picture was getting clearer. And I was starting to wish I'd charged more than $50. Ghosts are complicated. The people who kill them are worse. Back at the office, I called Harold Chun, told him I needed to see him. Tonight. It was urgent. He hesitated. I could hear the fear in that pause. Fear is honest. It tells you things people won't. He agreed. Said he'd meet me at his office in an hour. I hung up. Poured a drink. The whiskey tasted like bad decisions. I drank it anyway. Some nights, bad decisions are all you have for company. Chun's office at Westfield was dark when I arrived. The building was mostly empty. Night shift cleaning crews moving through hallways like ghosts themselves. Appropriate. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. Chun's door was unlocked. I pushed it open. He was sitting at his desk, very still. Too still. I'd seen that kind of still before. It's the kind that doesn't breathe. Harold Chun was dead. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just a man slumped over his desk like he'd fallen asleep and forgotten to wake up. I checked for a pulse anyway. Nothing. His skin was still warm. Recent. Very recent. I looked around the office. Everything was neat, orderly, except the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet. It was open, empty. Someone had been here before me, taken what they came for. Left Chun as a receipt. I should have called the police, should have walked away, should have done a lot of things that made sense. Instead, I searched the office, quickly, thoroughly, looking for anything that connected. Chun to Meridian Holdings or Michael Graves or whatever had gotten both of them killed. Found nothing. Whoever cleaned out that drawer had been professional, thorough, the kind of thorough that costs money and doesn't leave witnesses breathing. I left before the body got cold enough to make my presence inconvenient. Took the stairs, avoided the security cameras, old habits from a life I'd mostly left behind. Outside the night was clear, stars visible for once. The city looked almost innocent from this angle. It was lying, cities always are. I walked 3 blocks before I stopped shaking. Death does that, even when it's not yours. Someone was cleaning up loose ends. Chun knew about the Meridian payments. Now Chun was dead. Graves knew about them too. He was already dead, which put him ahead of the curve. But I knew about them now. That made me a loose end. I didn't particularly want to be tied off. I needed to find out who was behind Meridian Holdings before they found out I was looking. Speed versus discretion. I chose speed. The Hall of Records was closed. I had a friend who owed me a favor. She let me in through the back. I pulled everything on Meridian Holdings. The company was incorporated in 1935, owned various properties around the city, investments, holdings, the usual corporate shell game. But the registered owner was listed as Victor Ashford. That name rang bells, loud ones. Victor Ashford built the Ashford Building. Died in 1949. Dead men owning companies. This case was lousy with them. I kept digging, found Ashford's will. Everything went to his daughter, Elizabeth Ashford Chun. Chun, Harold's wife. The superintendent's Mrs. Chun, who moved out in '48. The same year her father died. Coincidence was officially on vacation. I was dealing with a family business, the kind that ran on secrets and stopped loose ends from breathing. I found Elizabeth Chun's address in the phone book. Pacific Heights. Big house, old money, the kind of address where people don't answer their own doors. I drove over. It was past midnight, the lights were on. Someone was awake, or expecting company. I parked down the street, watched the house. A black sedan sat in the driveway. No headlights, just like the one that killed Michael Graves. Funny how patterns repeat. I should have waited for daylight, should have brought backup, should have been smarter. But Chun was dead, and Graves was fading. And I was angry. Anger makes you stupid. Stupid gets you killed. I got out of the car anyway. Walked up to the front door. Rang the bell. It echoed inside like a warning. The door opened. Elizabeth Chun stood there. 50. Elegant. Eyes like frozen calculation. She looked at me like I was expected. "Mr. Orton," she said. "Come in." The house was perfect. Museum-quality furniture. Art on the walls worth more than my life. Everything positioned with surgical precision. The kind of home that had never seen joy or heard laughter. We sat in a parlor that smelled like old money and fresh murder. She poured tea. I didn't drink it. "You've been asking questions," she said. "Not an accusation, just a fact. Questions about my late husband, about Michael Graves, about Meridian Holdings." I asked her why her husband was dead. She smiled. It was professional, practiced, empty. Harold made a mistake. He kept records, after I specifically told him not to. Some men can't help themselves. They need proof, evidence, documentation. It's a weakness. Fatal, as it turns out. He was going to give those records to you. I couldn't allow that. You understand? I understood. I just didn't agree. Big difference. I asked her about Michael Graves. Her expression didn't change. Michael was Harold's employee. A good accountant. Too good. He found the payments to Meridian. Realized they were irregular. Started asking questions. Harold should have fired him. Instead, he tried to placate him. Another mistake. So I took care of it myself. The accident was clean, professional. He shouldn't have come back. That was unexpected. She said it so casually, like she was discussing the weather. I asked her what the payments were for. She set down her teacup. My father built an empire on secrets, Mr. Orton. Other people's secrets. He stored them, protected them. For a price, the 13th floor of the Ashford building was his vault. When he died, I inherited the business, the secrets, the leverage, the power. I've been running it for 5 years. Very successfully. Blackmail, the oldest business in the world. Ashford had built a physical vault for secrets that couldn't exist in banks. His daughter had inherited it, expanded it, and killed anyone who got too close. I asked her why she was telling me this. Because you're going to die, Mr. Orton, at about 2 minutes. I wanted you to understand why. Professional courtesy. You seem like the type who appreciates knowing the ending before it arrives. I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy. Professional. I didn't turn around. Turning wouldn't help. I'm curious, she said. How did you find me so quickly? Harold only died 3 hours ago. You're efficient. I respect that. In another life I might have hired you, but in this life you're a problem. And I solve problems permanently. It's cleaner that way. Fewer complications. The footsteps got closer. I still didn't turn around. Then the temperature dropped, not gradually, all at once. Like someone opened a door to winter. The lights flickered. Elizabeth Chun's expression changed. First time I'd seen genuine emotion on her face. It was fear. Michael Graves stepped through the wall behind her. Not through a door, through the wall itself. Still no shadow, still translucent, but more solid than before. Anger has a way of strengthening things, even ghosts. The man behind me made a sound, surprise or terror. Maybe both. I turned. Big guy. Expensive suit, gun in his hand. He was staring at Graves. People always stare at things that shouldn't exist. Gives you an opening. I took it, hit him hard. He went down. The gun skittered across the floor. I picked it up, pointed it at Elizabeth. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the ghost of the man she'd murdered. "Hello, Elizabeth," Graves said. His voice was different, harder, like 3 years of being dead had burned away everything soft. "You killed me, ran me off the bridge, left me to drown. I remember now, your car, your face in the rearview mirror. You were smiling. I'd forgotten that detail. Funny what comes back when you're standing in front of your murderer." She tried to speak. Nothing came out. Fear does that. I asked Graves how long he could hold this form. "Long enough," he said. "I'm burning what's left of whatever kept me here. After tonight I'll be gone. Really gone." But I needed to see her face. Needed her to know. I remembered that I came back. That she didn't win. He looked at me. "The records are in the 13th floor. Everything. All the secrets. All the proof. Give it to the police. Let her empire burn." Elizabeth found her voice. "You're dead. You can't testify. Can't touch anything. Can't prove anything. You're nothing but air and memory. This is over." Graves smiled. It was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. "You're right," he said. "I am nothing." But he isn't. He pointed at me. "Jack Orton. Living. Breathing. Real. He'll tell the story. He'll find the evidence. And you'll spend what's left of your life in a cell. Justice isn't perfect, but it's persistent." The police arrived 10 minutes later. I'd called them from Elizabeth's phone. She sat perfectly still until they took her away. Didn't resist, didn't speak. Just stared at the space where Graves had been standing. He was gone by then, faded completely. I never saw him again. The man I'd knocked out confirmed everything. Sang like a canary with a guilty conscience. Some men crack easy when their employer's empire collapses. I found the key to the 13th floor in Harold Chun's effects. The police let me accompany them. Professional courtesy. The elevator still worked. Still paused between 6 and 7 when you pressed the right combination. The doors opened onto a floor that officially didn't exist. Rows of filing cabinets. Decades of secrets. Enough leverage to destroy 1,000 lives. We confiscated all of it. Burned most of it. Some secrets deserved to stay buried. Elizabeth Chun was convicted of 2 murders. Harold and Michael, life sentence, no parole. Her blackmail empire was dismantled. The victims were notified. Some were grateful. Some were terrified their secrets would come out anyway. They didn't. I made sure of that. Not for her sake. For theirs. People make mistakes. Doesn't mean they should pay forever. Just most of the time. Justice is flexible like that. I kept the $50 Michael Graves paid me. Framed it. Hung it on my office wall. Reminder that the dead don't always stay buried. That some cases solve themselves if you just wait long enough. That shadows matter more than you think. Without them, you're just a ghost pretending to be real. Most of us are anyway, we just don't know it yet. The lucky ones never find out. So that's the story, the client who didn't cast a shadow. The man who hired me 3 years after drowning. The ghost who wanted justice and got it before fading away. People ask me if I believe in ghosts now. I tell them I believe in unfinished business. Belief is just unfinished business you've learned to live with. The rain's stopped. You should go. Get some sleep. Tomorrow brings new cases, new problems, new clients who may or may not be dead.